to our VP of Sales, Joe.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Julie, and thanks to everyone for attending today. It's funny, it says Joe Nagy here as Vice President of Sales. I am that. Graham, if you move the screen. However, having said that, I'll be joined by one of our senior support personnel, Graham Curtis, who's going to be doing the actual demonstration. So I can't take all the credit today. Graham, if you next one. So what we're really looking to do today is just kind of go through an overview of our business continuity suite and talk a little bit about Zetta, but primarily give you a demonstration of the entire suite, and then answer some questions. So kind of let's dive right into the next slide. So Zetta has been around since 2008, and it's not a household name like some of the other folks out there, but we've done what we think is a really good job developing technology from seasoned execs that have worked, kind of been in your shoes. They've worked at Netscape, they've worked at Shutterfly, they've worked all over the place in operations, not just in creating solutions themselves. So they've kind of sat in the shoes of folks like you, and quite frankly, when they started looking at building a company, they're really building something that they wanted to buy themselves. And so our CTO and founder built just that. And so you see a lot of that built into the solution. And that's why more than 2,000 companies rely on us for access to their systems, and no matter what's happening. And so some of our clients include Blue Jeans, GoPro, Marriott, the Salvation Army, and all of them are using us. All these diverse companies are using us for, some of them are using for different reasons. They have different levels of expectations with regard to their data, but all of them know that when bad things happen or anything happens, that they've got a partner in Zetta that they can trust. Next screen. So the real question is, why would they do this why would they choose us? Like I said, we're not the best known company, but what makes us different? Well, generally enterprise grade performance, and the system was built by people who were used to having to deal with really large organizations, and they really knew that they couldn't get by with something that would work for consumer use. They really needed to buy from a company wanted to buy from a company that had enterprise grade in mind first. So when we start thinking about that, what does that really mean? Well, it means a lot of things, and of course, one of my sales representatives will be happy to tell you all of those things in a bit of a longer meeting. But a couple of things we like to call out is that on the disaster recovery side, we're talking about creating a solution that allows you to spin up a server in under 5 minutes. And then as far as backup speeds go, this was a solution that is cloud first, provides local capability, but it really is cloud first. And what's interesting about it was originally built as primary storage, and then the market got to the point where they were really using us as secondary storage, so we kind of took up that banner. But really what you're ending up with is a solution with backup speeds that are really quick. And so all of our IP is around making that transaction from your local machines up to the cloud happen as quickly as possible. It was built to be easy, right? So it's cloud first, local backup, and no hardware to manage. And that's when we see a lot of our folks that are very interested in our solution with somewhat serious geographic dispersion of their data sets. So construction companies and hospital chains and school chains and all types of people who need backup spread across their enterprise. And they're looking for an end-to-end service, right? So backup, not only backup, but also disaster recovery, but also an easy failback to when those solutions, when that issue needs to be managed, getting those back in. And then it needed to be an affordable solution. So we built a solution that's competitive at serious terabyte levels. It's competitive with AWS and Azure, and there's no hidden costs. It's an easy to describe pricing system. We charge based on how much terabytes you use, and on disaster recovery, how much compute power you need. It's very simple. So that's the business continuity suite. And I'm going to hand it off to I'm going to have to hand it off to Graham right now. But I want to make something perfectly clear. I want something to make something perfectly clear is that one of the things that we don't list on the previous slide, but is really important to us and was really important to our CTO when he founded the company, is that we have strong support. I mean, our support is 7/24/365, and that's, you know, Graham, who's going to walk you through this demo. That's his main job, right? So he supports us on the marketing and sales side by doing demonstrations, but Graham and people like him are the ones who pick up the phone. There's no one that picks up a phone and sets up a ticket and promises someone will call you back within a specific amount of time. It's guys and gals like Graham who are picking up the phone and staying on the line with you until something's fixed. They are located here at our headquarters in Sunnyvale, California. They're within arm's reach of the CTO as well as the folks who wrote the software themselves. So they have full reign to make sure that they grab up whoever they need in order to make fixes happen. And so with no further ado, I'll introduce Graham. And thanks, Graham, taking time out of your day. Hit the road.
Hi, everybody. So the first thing I want to do to dive into this demo here is go over what we call a sliding scale of disasters. So again, disaster will strike. It does happen. You're at risk if you don't have a reliable DR plan. But there's kind of this sliding scale of disasters determining, you know, how common they are to happen versus, you know, how devastating they are. So the most common is someone accidentally deleted a file, they dropped their laptop, lost a phone. You know, they need to go back to 2 days ago's version of a file because they realized they deleted something they didn't want to. That happens most often. It's what we see. It's what the first thing that we really built to answer. The next scale of disasters is, you know, one server blows up. You know, hard drive crashes, RAID array goes down, virtual machine gets corrupted. Just one machine is down. You need to figure out how to deal with that and get that system up as quickly as possible. We've definitely built a solution that can deal with that as well. And the least common one is complete site destruction. Natural disaster, hurricane, earthquake, fire. For whatever reason, the entire building is down, everything is gone, and you need to be able to boot up your entire rack of servers to keep your business running. And we've built a solution that will deal with that too, the ability to scale infinitely and to boot up not just 1 or 2 of your servers, but to actually boot up everything offsite in a way that can be accessed and used to keep your business moving forward. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo here. So this is our one-stop shop portal. It's kind of a single pane of glass that shows you everything you need to know. First step that you're going to do after logging into the portal is download the replication agent. We do have 32 and 64-bit versions for Windows, Linux, and Mac. It's a lightweight file. You download it, install it, and then register it to your account using your login credentials. Once that's done, virtually everything is managed from this portal. Again, this portal is accessible from anywhere, so you can go in and change a configuration setting, sitting at an airport waiting for your flight. You can restore a file for someone wherever you are. It's quick and it's easy, and it's all in one place. Moving down to a particular system here, look at the configuration. So the top here is your retention policy. Your retention policy is basically how long we keep your version history for. We give you complete control over this, starting at a minimum of 7 days. You can say how many daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly version histories you want to keep. Again, this is your default. Each task underneath can have its own. Not all data needs to be protected to the same level, right? Your tax documents you need to keep around for 7 years. That's a legal requirement. Another folder, maybe you only want to keep version history for a month. Something that changes a lot, you look at a lot, like a SQL server, maybe you only want to keep 7 days of history for. And we give you complete control over that option. The next portion here is the backup schedule. You can run them on an hourly basis or on a schedule where you say which days of the week and at what time you want it to run. Lastly, here is the throttle. So with network throttles, we don't believe in imposing one on you. If you have a 1 gig line and you need to restore your data right now because you're office is down and you need this data, you need that 1 gig of bandwidth, and we're going to give it to you. We have multiple 10 gig lines going into both of our data centers. And again, we make all of that available to you. We were designed as primary storage. That said, the downside of giving you as much bandwidth as you want is we can give you more than you want, and we can completely drown out your network. We have a history of completely shutting down customers' networks without a throttle in place. And to deal with that, we've created a network throttle option here. Really easy to make here. You basically just open it, say how many kilobits per second you want to throttle, which days of the week, and at what times. Important thing to note here is you can have as many throttles as you want. So maybe business hours, you throttle it down to one number. After hours, you throttle it to another. And on weekends, you throttle it to a third. There's really no limit here. You can have a different throttle for every hour for every day of the week. Moving on to the task selection here. We have a number of plugins available. File and folder is one that pretty much everyone has. Unstructured data, just need to back it up. All you really need to do is put your backup path in here. You can either browse to it in your window, or you can just type it in here. Beyond that, we have various options. So as I was saying before, you can choose a different retention policy for every folder. Additionally, we have the option here to archive deleted items. What this basically means is if you delete an item on your side, we keep it on our side outside of your retention history. Again, really good idea for something like a tax document folder where you don't want to accidentally delete anything. Not the best idea for a large folder with lots of files that change constantly. Then additionally, we do have the option to keep a local copy here. Again, we're not interested in selling you any hardware, but if you already have a NAS, you already have a SAN, you have a USB drive attached to your system, and you want to back up your data, it's quick and easy to do so. You put a UNC path or a drive folder here. As long as you have read and write access to this folder, we can do a local backup to it. Then lastly is the exclusions. So obviously we're back at the C users folder. Common example is, I don't want to back up people's music files. They take up a lot of data, not really something interested to our business, don't want to back that up. So one way to exclude that is to exclude star.mp3. We do accept those star wildcards, and in this case, anywhere we find a file with extension MP3, we would exclude it. Another way of going about the same goal would be to exclude a folder name. Folder names music, or perhaps iTunes. In this scenario, anywhere we come across a folder named music, we would exclude it and all of its contents. Same for a folder named iTunes. Lastly is the absolute path option. So rather than saying, hey, I want to exclude everybody's music, there's this one guy, John, who has a ton of music in this folder, not relevant to business. We want to exclude just this one. This would exclude just this exact path and anything underneath it. Additionally, we do provide you the ability to exclude anything over or under a certain size or new or older than a certain date. On top of this files plugin, we do have plugins that help you back up your SQL databases. This includes going in, truncating your logs, and backing up the data. System State for Windows. NetApp plugin, which uses NetApp's built-in snapshotting ability to snapshot your data before backing it up. Exchange plugin, a Hyper-V plugin, a Windows image backup plugin, as well as a virtual appliance for VMware to back up your virtual machines directly. Rather than go through all of these, I'm going to go ahead and dive into Windows image backup here. So Windows image backup and VMware are two ways you can back up your systems that make them available for a disaster recovery option. Again, our disaster recovery option is where you can go and boot your server up in the cloud, prevent those less likely disasters where an entire system or entire set of systems goes down. Again, very simple to do the Windows image backup. Just select which drives you want. Again, option to create a local backup is here. You can add a task, and it's good to go. So those are, again, the last backup option to go over is our VMware virtual appliance. This is an OVA file that we give to you. You deploy inside your vCenter. And then just like the agent, you register it to your account. And then from there, you also put in your vCenter credentials. We then use vCenter's APIs to back everything up for you. We can go through here and live filter down to just a few systems. I can search for just SQL systems. I can search for just Acme systems. Again, this live filters. And then enabling a system is as easy as clicking enable here. It automatically backs up to your default volume, but you can change that. And again, the volume is how you choose your retention policy. So I can say 7 days, I can say a custom one, 7 years, whatever you want. And that's all you have to do to back up this system. Again, this is an agentless approach. And the real big advantage here for our virtual appliance for VMware is that we do leverage VMware's CBT technology. So in general, when we do a backup, there are two major components that can consume time. One, we do a complete scan of your data set to find any changes. And two, we think just those changes we find over the network. The advantage of CBT technology is while your system is running, it keeps a live map to all of those changes as they're happening. So rather than having to scan the whole drive for each one of these systems, we know exactly where to go. We have kind of a map that shows us where to find those changes and sync them over the network. So at this point, you have your data backed up. It's all in the cloud. That's all great and everything, but you can't actually restore your data. It's kind of useless. So for VMware, we have a couple of options here. You can restore an entire VM disk image to vCenter. To do this, you basically just specify which data store you want to restore to, as well as which machine. We restore the file down in VMDK format and attach it to that system for you. Now again, on that sliding scale of disasters, here, the most common is just a deleted file, dropped laptop, lost phone. Restoring an entire image in that case is really impractical. So to deal with that, you can browse into that image, find a restore date here. I can go back to whichever day I want. This is the first step. So again, I can say I need to go back to a file I had on Sunday, October 30th. And then I just navigate down to that file. So again, here's that image. You can restore the entire image if you like. But again, more often than not, we need an individual file. You're able to browse in. The familiar experience is any file browser you've ever used before. I can drill down, go to the Documents folder, or a Downloads folder, or anywhere I have the file I'm looking for, and it's presented to me here. From this point, you have two options. It's an individual file you're trying to download, a small one. Again, if you're sitting in an airport, someone calls you saying, hey, I need this file now. This is where to find it. Can you just email it to me quickly? You can go in here, right-click, download that file, and it downloads in your browser window. You have it instantly. You can email it off to that person. Everybody's happy. Now, the other use case there is you need a larger file, an entire folder, or you just want to restore directly down to that person's system. You don't want to be the intermediary here. So to deal with that, you can right-click that file or folder and restore the folder using your application agent. From here, you select a destination system. This is any system that has the agent installed on it. Destination path, and you enter your password one last time for security purposes. And from here, it restores the data directly down to that system. Again, this is done quickly and easily and can be initiated from anywhere in the world you have internet access. So that covers the backup and recovery portion. But the next scenario is when, again, an individual system goes down or an entire data center goes down. So you may have noticed we have this available for disaster recovery option here, this light blue box. We also have it for VMware, available for disaster recovery. Enabling is very easy. You just go to Configuration, add the disaster recovery plan. From here, you choose how much RAM you want to assign to the system. This is the primary compute cost that we forward on to you, and you basically just set to whatever the system needs. So here it's a 16 gigs of RAM for the server, and then we select any Microsoft licenses we have. This is just a regular system, no SQL or anything running on it, so it's just a Windows license. I hit save and go to my disaster recovery page. So here I can see that server that I just added here. It will back up to dedicated storage we have for a disaster recovery plan, where we put your data on storage that's been optimized for I/O for actual use. Again, it's one thing to say, hey, in the event of a disaster, I can spin my system up in the cloud. It's another to say, hey, in the event of a disaster, I can spin my system up in the cloud, and it's actually a usable system. If I move my mouse, it moves instantly. If I ask for data, it comes back quickly. I'm not sitting around waiting for 5 minutes for anything to happen. Activating a VM is quick and easy. You just go over here, hit activate, choose which version you want to restore from, and activate that VM. This process takes less than 5 minutes. We've gone out of our way to ensure that this boot up process is quick and painless as possible. Additionally, we go the extra mile at the beginning and make sure everything is A, pre-configured and tested, and B, that it's documented. In the event of a disaster, your guru, the person who set this up, may not be available. They may be locked out of the building, they may be on vacation, they just may not be able to be contacted at that moment. And you may need to know, hey, in order to make this work, we need to boot up server A, then B, then the rest, and then we need to make this one configuration change. So we work with you to make that documentation and make sure not only you have a copy, but we have a copy as well. So someone from your office calls in panicked saying, hey, we need to boot this up, our whole site's down, what do we do? We're able to help them. We're able to tell them what to do to get their systems back online. Again, booting system in the cloud is really useless if you can't access it. I can always take your image, say, oh yeah, no, I booted that at home, it's great. But if you can't access it, it's useless. So to resolve that, we have a couple of connectivity options here. Again, back on that sliding scale of disaster, more often than not, it's just a single server that goes down. Right? One server blows up, you need to continue working, you need to have that accessible. So to deal with that, we have what we call site-to-site VPN. So for this, we deploy a small virtual appliance on your end, and we use that to merge your cloud network and your local network together. So that one server goes down, you spin it up in the cloud, it boots in the cloud, and because the networks are merged, anybody on your local network thinks it's local to them, they can interact with it as if it had never gone down, and any systems that are interdependent continue to work with each other. Again, we make it as quick as easy as possible. You hit activate, and it goes. As you may have noticed, the system is now live and active and ready to use. The other option, again, whole site goes down. In that case, you don't really have a local network for people to connect to anymore, but people still need to be able to access the network in the cloud. For that, we have the point-to-site VPN. For that, using a VPN client, either OpenVPN, which is free, or a built-in one, you're able to connect to an individual system up to the cloud. So again, send your employees home, send them to Starbucks, anywhere they have network access. They spin up VPN, they connect to the cloud, and they're able to continue working. The last connectivity option here is port forwarding. Again, if you have an Exchange server that goes down, you need to boot up in the cloud, you need to have external access, especially in this event of a complete site disaster. Port forwarding is quick and easy. It's like any router you've ever worked with before. You just go in, select which system you want, the internal port, the external port, and the protocol, and then add your rule. It's important to note, this IP address is yours, it's static, it goes into DR planning, it does not change. So you may have noticed these little cameras on these systems. They're basically means once a month we go in, we boot that system, make sure we can actually boot it, we take a screenshot of it. So lastly on connectivity, before your system's configured, before things are ready, just to connect to that system, you need a true console experience. This can help you figure out any issues the system may be having with booting, as well as do any initial settings you need to get your network ready. Obviously, once your network is completely up and running, you can RDP into that system. You can access it as you would normally as if it were on your network. Second, please. Okay, so here is that system. It is booting in the cloud. My apologies, I don't reboot my servers very often. So this one's installing about 6 months worth of security patches right now. But it's booting, it's accessible, it's online, and it's here. So this is your system up in the cloud. That's great, everything is running. You got everything up and running in the cloud. Now, disaster subsided, you fixed your hardware, you replaced your server, the building's accessible again. Now you need to fail back down to your local system. So just like we tried to minimize downtime booting up your server in the cloud, we want to minimize failback time getting that server back up and running in your location. So what we do is while your server is still running in the cloud, we restore the image back down to you of the server. Let's say that takes 5 hours to run the complete restore. During that 5 hours, the server is still up and running in the cloud, still having changes happen to it, still being used. So at the end of that restore, we do an incremental restore of just the blocks that have changed in those 5 hours and restore them back down onto that image. This time that takes an hour. We then repeat that process again. And we do this over and over and over again until that restore window is very, very, very short. At that point, we shut your system down in the cloud, do one last incremental restore, and then you're able to boot up locally. Again, this is all managed very simply from this portal. That's just kind of what's going on in the background once you start the failback. So that's pretty much how we handle all of our disasters here, right? We can get an individual file or folder out of the disk image quickly and easily, restore it directly down to the system or download it in our browser. An individual server goes up, we have site-to-site VPN pre-configured, ready to go. You boot up the server locally, in the cloud, and you're able to access it locally. Or again, in the event of a complete disaster, your building shut down, all your servers are down. We have the ability to spin all of them up in the cloud concurrently. People are able to access it via point-to-site VPN, and the world keeps working. So that's it for the demo. I'm going to go ahead and move things along here to Q&A.
So if you have questions, please submit them directly to the panelists via the chat button in the upper left-hand corner, and we'll address them right now. So it looks like we have one question that's come in so far. What's the one thing you've seen IT professionals miss when it comes to disaster recovery planning?
So here at Zetta, we have a belief that if it's not tested, it's not DR. If it's not pre-configured, it's not DR. We find a lot of the time people set up DR, they have the envision, they have the plan, but they never actually test anything. And again, sure, that saves you some time now, but in the event of an actual disaster, you try booting things up just to figure out, oh, hey, I didn't configure the network here, I have to make these changes and those changes. 6 hours later, if you're lucky, you have everything up and running. This is why we definitely believe in testing everything, pre-configuring everything, and making sure everything works on a regular basis. Again, we don't like to just say that you have DR, we like to say you have DR that you've tested and works.
Great. So next up, what's more important to get right? Is it the sizing of servers or the network configuration?
That's another good question. So if I have a server and I don't back up all the data, I don't prepare to get that right, you don't have it up in the cloud, you obviously can't restore from it. So it's really not that useful. That said, having all your data in the cloud, having your server booted in the cloud, but not being able to access it, not being able to work with it, is equally as disastrous. So I can't really say one's more important than the other. It's just really important to get both of them done right and have both of them tested and make sure that they work in the event of an actual disaster.
Okay. So next up, we have one that's come in from Joe, not our Joe, another Joe. It says, we currently have 9 sites already running Zetta, but when logging into the Zetta dashboard, it only lists one site. Can you fix this and combine all 9 sites into one dashboard?
We can do that. So we do have the ability to have what we call a parent account for all of your children accounts. Each of your children accounts would still have the ability to have users manage individual sites, so everyone at their site can manage just their own if you'd like. Or you can have a super user that can manage all of them, can interact with all of them, and can restore data, set up backups, configure everything for them. So yes, we can combine all 9 sites into one dashboard. For this, just please reach out to support or your sales manager, and we'd be happy to help you and get that configured.
So we have another question coming from, like Philip here. Can an iPhone 6s Plus be used for dashboard control and emergency?
So in general, anywhere you have internet access and an internet browser, you can access your portal. You can log in with an iPhone, with an Android, with the Windows phone, really anywhere you want. It's entirely browser-based. We don't have a native app currently. That said, it is quick and easy to manage. I know I personally have gone through and done some restores from my cell phone when I wasn't able to access a computer. And that includes restoring data to someone's system, or spinning up your systems in the cloud.
So next up, we have, how do you prove the value of disaster recovery to clients?
I'll take that one. Yeah. So interestingly, when we started talking about folks with after years of working with backup, kind of specifically, a lot of folks saw that as kind of an insurance policy. It's almost something you had to have. Perhaps it was a compliance item that you had to have. Whereas disaster recovery is almost seems a little bit like we're seeing it as an ROI item. I mean, so folks, if you don't have a something backed up and you lose a file, it can be disastrous, as Graham mentioned. But it's tough to put a number on that. Whereas disaster recovery situations, it's easier to put a number on. And so whether you're working with internal clients, your CFO, or your external clients, if you're a partner of ours that's working to help justify a solution like this. Typically, what people are looking at is how much trouble are you in if there is a disaster, and trouble in the means of typically businesses are able to say, look, if we're down for 3 days, it's going to cost us $300,000. And so it's not a simple exercise, but it's a monetary exercise in figuring out how long you expect to be down in an emergency, how much that will cost you, and then what the likelihood of that event is. And then the likelihood of that event, and then pretty much that number is what you can safely spend over a period of time on disaster recovery, because that's what you're protecting against. And in that case, it's where it's important to pay attention to both your recovery time objective as well as your recovery point objective. So that's why when we talk about, we kind of talk about how it's difficult to choose sizing of the servers or network configuration as most important to get right, because without a good, without a network setup, without having everything tested and ready to go, you might not hit your recovery time objective. And then, if you're set up properly, it doesn't matter because you're not up in time. But if you're up in time fast, but you don't have enough server configuration to meet your recovery point objective, then what you're really doing is you're saying, hey, I'm going to protect against $300,000 worth of loss. But if your network or your system is only 50% usable, you've really only protected 150%. So as you're looking at this, when we're talking with folks, that's really what the questions we're asking is like, okay, if there's an emergency, how long do you expect to be down, and how much is that going to cost, and then what's the percentage chance of that happening? So that's how we look at it when we talk with folks. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Joe. It looks like we're done with questions. I think we're all set. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
And again, as always, if any more questions arise, anything comes up, feel free to contact our support line. As Joe was saying, we're 24/7, and we're always happy to help.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.